Are genocides ever justified? This is a really gross question, but it's a really important one because one, every genocide that's ever happened has been seen as justified and often righteous by the people perpetrating it. And also because if you watch this video in its entirety, you may discover the uncomfortable realization that there may be genocides that you in fact do support. Why people think genocides are justified is a very complex question, and I'm just going to focus on one aspect of that here. He states that genocides are often seen as defensive or in retribution against traitors and subversives. So he gives the example of how the Turks justified the Armenian genocide as being the result of excesses in response to the Armenian uprising against the Ottoman state. Apologists in Rwanda for Hutu power often state that the genocide was just nothing more than a continuation of civil war or tribal conflict, and was in fact justified because Hutus were seeking to preempt the kind of genocide at Tutsis' hands that Hutus had already suffered in neighboring Burundi. So most of us are going to be like, you can't preemptively do a genocide and have that be okay. But what Jones points out is that we are often okay with what he calls subaltern genocides or genocides by the oppressed. He states, in general, genocidal assaults that contain a morally plausible element of revenge, retribution, or revolutionary usurpation are less likely to be condemned and are often welcomed. He points to the Allied firebombing of Japanese and German cities as justified because they started it. And many scholars see the firebombings and nuclear bombings as genocidal, but because they started it, people are okay with that, even though it's assigning collective guilt to civilian populations for what leadership has done. He also gives the example of what happened to Serbian civilians after the Serb nationalists massacred Bosnia. The Serbian genocide against Bosnian Muslims was also a reason given for why Serb civilians were targeted for murder by ethnic Albanian extremists in the 1999 Kosovo War. Perhaps the most uncomfortable example he gives is that of the Haitian Revolution. Haiti was a slave colony, but in 1804, they rose up and after a massacre of the white population, established the first free black republic. He quotes the great scholar of the Haitian Revolution, C.L.R. James, who described the massacre as killing all whites with every possible brutality, and says that even though he acknowledged that the victims were defenseless, he was only sad about the damage done to the souls of the killers and their future political climate. And he says that this murder, which included women and children, was justified based on the suffering that the overall white population had inflicted upon enslaved black people in Haiti. He says that the core problem is that we attach plausibility to reprisals and retribution based on our own political identifications. So we have a harder time condemning people that we sympathize with, even when they are committing atrocities, up to and including genocide. He says consciously or unconsciously, we distinguish worthy from unworthy victims, and we may be less ready to label as genocidal the atrocities that our chosen worthies commit. This has been an incredibly uncomfortable video to make, and I hope to watch because these are issues we need to be wrestling with to understand who we think are worthy of life and who's worthy of death.